Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, fellow nobodies. This is Nobody Studios IdeaLab, and thank you for joining our session today, which is going to be super amazing because I have Chiara with me today, who is my partner in crime, our, oh yes, our head storyteller and superstar overall. So, Chiara, you're not from London like me. Where are you from?
I was born and raised in Orange County, California, and I currently reside about 30 minutes from Sedona, Arizona, hippie capital of the US. Yeah.
I've heard of it. Fantastic. So today's live stream, folks, is we're going to do a bit more of a deeper dive. In previous live streams, we've talked about the Idea Lab, the super fun process that we have for taking ideas into the studio and how we filter those through things like our newspaper headline, the videos, etc., etc. But we've had some feedback to say, well, this is awesome, but we want to understand a little bit more about how those ideas go from those inception to creating a company. So that's what we're going to do today. And we're going to do a deep dive into one of the companies that we've created recently called Webdelics. Now, I'm quite a newbie on this topic, and I know a little bit about plant medicine because my mum, being Indian, is all about, right, come on, son, we'll put some leaves on your head or go and have this brew. And magically, like 30 seconds later, that's it, I'm cured and I have to go to work again. So, that's awesome.
Sounds like yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So let's go and do that sort of deep dive. So one of the new codes we have is Webdelics. Chiara, what is Webdelics?
So Webdelics is a psychedelic education platform. It is intended to steer an emerging industry in the direction of informed use, respectful use, reverent use, because we know that psychedelics are becoming legalized, and it's very much paralleling like the rise of cannabis, where it's becoming legal in pockets. People are becoming more aware of it. It's kind of like in the zeitgeist right now.
Right.
And it's still legally murky. And so the question for us became, how can we get our foot in the door while this is still an emerging industry in a way that is appropriate? And our solution to that was education.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, here in the UK, they're looking at the topic, but it's other countries like where Perry, our good friend from the Octopus Movement, shout out to Perry, is from Amsterdam. Things are a little bit more sort of liberal there. How are things in the US as far as sort of that talk of legislation?
Well, it's not quite like it is over where Perry is. I'm pretty sure it's like food pyramid. Over here, depends. I would say that it's decriminalized in
Right.
places,
Okay.
but for the most part, they still remain like Schedule 1 or whatever the case is, and it's becoming more legal for like therapeutic uses, so like ketamine therapy, MDMA, that kind of stuff, and then slowly becoming more accessible to everyday people. It's a bit of a longer haul, but currently in like a clinical setting, a lot of these
Sure.
things are being approved to treat mental health issues.
Okay. Okay. And how did this idea start? How did it come into the Idea Lab? What was that sort of inception point? And more importantly, I love to ask the question of where was that person when they thought of that idea? Were they kind of, having a walk in the shower on the loo? My favorite four things, or in an innovation meeting, which has never happened yet. But there you go.
Well, I look forward to those. So you might have to ask him, but the idea came from our wise and benevolent leader, Mark McNally. And so, yeah, this is one of his idea babies. And I know it in part comes from his experience with plant medicine and his own healing journey, but also the number of people that I think he's seen affected, positively affected, impacted by these substances. And so originally his idea was to create some kind of content site, some kind of educational hub, because currently it doesn't really exist. There's a couple of really good thought leaders that exist that focus on like a specific substance. So, like double blind with psilocybin. but there currently isn't anything that's like a central educational hub for all things psychedelic, like the latest events, where things are in the legalization process, and then like also information on all the different kinds of substances, and certainly not things that are scientifically backed. You know, there might be blogs from like Bob the Mushroom Guy at AOL, but for the most part, it's not like heavily cited. And one thing that we really pride ourselves on at Webdelics is that it is very much backed by science. And so our writers, our editors, the people, the panel of advisory people who vet the content, all of them are really well versed in this area, and they're all up on like the latest happenings in the space. So that was the thought, is that we would bring it together, this field that is currently it's kind of scientific, academic, dry, and like how do you make that accessible to everyday people? And we do it through blogs, infographics, whiteboard videos, and this really spellbinding podcast by Scott Mason, which I recommend to everyone. It's outstanding. I don't even like podcasts, and I could listen to him all day long. It's outstanding.
That's his voice. It doesn't matter. He could be reading the back of a cereal box, as far as I care, and it would still be amazing. Yeah. So we're getting some amazing comments coming through. Lots of people joining. As we're going through this, folks who have joined in, feel free to put down any questions that you want on this topic, or more generally about the IdeaLab. It'd be great to hear from you. So Chiara, so the idea, Mark suggested the idea, and as part of our progressive process, we obviously go from the ideate to the concept. Can you tell me a little bit more about some of the things that the concept phase involves and what that specifically meant for Webdelics?
Yeah, so this is one of the first companies we're bringing to market, and as such, there was a little bit of a learning curve. It starts usually, if it's an idea that comes from Mark, he'll download it to me, and I put it into what we call a hatch deck. And basically, it is a deck that uses written and visual storytelling as a through line to ensure the fidelity of an idea, because what we were finding prior to having something like that is that it was like a really terrible game of telephone, where you had one person tell someone an idea, tell someone an idea, tell someone an idea, who would go build it. And then it was like nothing like the original vision. And so the question became, what asset can we have in place is like kind of gutter rails to keep us on track? And so we have this thing called a hatch deck, which is the visual and written storytelling. And the reason it's called a hatch deck, by the way, is because hatching 100 companies in 5 years is a little bit like watching baby sea turtles hatch, which if you've never seen it, it's a spectacle. There's like hundreds of them on a seashore, and they crack open their shells and they're all like running down toward the water. But it's like a perilous journey, because you've got seagulls swooping in, there's like wild dogs. They can be steered off course by like city lights or car lights they mistake for the horizon light, which is how they guide themselves down to the water. And so we want all our turtles to get investing waters, and scale and grow up big and strong, but doesn't always happen. And so keeping in mind that we have to play with a lot of ideas to hit our goal in the next 5 years. So that's where Hatch Deck came from. It's probably the first thing that we create in the progressive process. And then from there, there's some like really rudimentary, cursory like market research that we'll do, competitor research, just like the first layer of it before it gets green lighted to concept. And then in concept is really where we start to think through this. And with Webdelics, it was, like I said, a bit of a learning curve. And one of the things that became apparent within the first few newcos that we worked on is that we sometimes have too many cooks in the kitchen too early on. And you want the diversity of thought, but you also have to counterbalance it with the fact that sometimes people will pull it in a bunch of different directions, right? And so what happened with Webdelics is we got into a room and we started talking about how we wanted to do this, and everyone kind of had their own idea and went off and started building their own things. Like someone was working on like the science articles, someone was working on the whiteboard videos, I was working on the SEO strategy, other person was like design. And so we come back together and there's like all this disparate pieces. And then Mark brought me in and was like, project manage this. And so using SEO as like the cornerstone, synthesized all of the pieces that people had been working on into like a single strategy. that all tied back to our SEO and our topic clusters. So it was okay with Webdelics because we needed a lot of different pieces for it to be a content site, right? Like you want a kind of like robust, diverse collection of content. So it worked, but with any other NewCo, I'm afraid it wouldn't have worked out as well as it did here. So that was a little bit of the process with that. It was a good time. It still is a good time.
For sure. And you said that was one of the first companies to be created in the studio. So I guess lots of learning points anyway. Say, okay, this is how we're going to do the next 99 or so. Yeah.
And how we're not going to 99, a little of both.
Yeah. We have hey, Karen, we have a sort of a side question here from Karen, who says that she briefly heard about the studio and Mark's videos that were focused on certain areas in the IdeaLab. One of the things that we're not focused on is enterprise sales, because obviously they take ages to do. And being involved in enterprise sales myself, yeah, those people don't get back to you for like 2 years, and you got stuff to do in that meantime. But there are things like health and wellness that we have a focus on. Is what else have you been seeing in the IdeaLab that we've been getting ideas in? What other sectors have we got to focus in?
Other sectors we've got, well, so health and wellness is definitely one of our big ones. We also talk about things like green tech. We've got a really killer hospitality board, which is pretty exciting. And then some things that are related to like new social media. So lots of initiatives in lots of places. We call ourselves equal opportunity innovators because really there isn't anything that we won't do necessarily. But I would say our strongest lane right now is probably health and wellness, just given the team that we have there, and then hospitality as well, just because we've got this incredible board of advisors there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Just this morning, I had 3 new ideas come in to the lab, and they were all in the health and wellness space. Exactly. So yes, yeah, yeah. So Webdelics has been launched recently. What's next for the platform, for the vision for the company?
So it's in alpha currently. You're welcome to go check it out, webdelics.com, and you can even leave us feedback because there's a little tab on the side of the site. So we're currently iterating just a little bit. It's mostly in place, and we launched like early January soft launch, and we're making some adjustments to the site before we really push it out with our influencer strategy. So that's all in the works. And then we're also trying to hire ourselves out of jobs because currently it's all studio people, which like we love working on the new codes, but ultimately for this to be scalable, like we can't do everything. So looking for the right people to hand this baton off to, for them to sort of carry the torch forward. Specifically looking for that kind of like face of the company role, something CEO, someone who's fundable, someone who can go do the funding, and then definitely some sort of marketing role, which might also include, in a kind of a weird way, product, because the whole platform is content, right? And so it would be someone who would need to manage the content. And then there's also a community management portion. So we're looking for our unicorns to take over those couple of.
Well, hopefully someone on this live stream, or perhaps watching it later, will kind of hear this message and say, yeah, we want to be a nobody as well. And this is a fantastic topic. I want to get involved, right?
It'd be amazing.
Yeah. People who have dialed in, I don't know why we even say dialed in, that sounds so old-fashioned, right? It's no like dialing with buttons anymore anyway, but there we go. Feel free to put down any questions, make them tricky, because kind of Chiara really knows her stuff when it comes to Webdelics. So yeah, looking forward to your feedback and your comments around Webdelics. Has anyone sort of I nearly used the word experimented, but kind of delved into this topic and see what they think about that. So when you're not working on Webdelics, what else keeps you busy in the lab, Chiara?
What else keeps me busy in the lab? Well, prior to you coming on board, Min, I was mostly being pulled into Newco stuff. So it's been a lot of project management in that way, just because that's like what I'm strong in. That's been a lot of my backgrounds. Also managing our HubSpot operations. So that's like a key piece of our tech stack currently. And so setting those portals up for Newcos, launching them, and then also doing it at the studio level. And then with the IdeaLab, it's really just been, collaborating with you on all the amazing things that come through and figuring out how we can.
Best job, isn't it?
It's outstanding. I didn't know a role like this existed, but I'm so glad that it does. I'm so glad that it does.
It does. Fantastic. Mm-hmm. Perry's suggesting we hire non-linear thinkers. Perry, you're with us all the way. You know that. Yeah. So another thing that I was super impressed with Webdelics was the planning that goes into it, because it's not like, right, we've got Scott, do one podcast and that's it. We'll see how that goes. It was kind of military fashion, right? In that you had a whole heap of podcasts and content and stuff ready to go even before we even told the world about it.
Yeah, it only took, and this is what was one of the coolest lessons from this company, is how quickly we can build companies, because it really only took us maybe 4 months to figure out what all of this was going to look like. And then for the next 4, we were just backlogging content. We could have launched at any time, but we also wanted to time it right with like our crowdfunding campaign and the like. And so, yeah. Sorry, I got distracted. We saw a question.
All right. Yeah. So Perry's sent us a question. He's going to make us cry now, I'm sure. So what would be an idea that would hit the perfect spot for Nobody Studios? Meaning, what problem does nobody see that needs to be solved with this new idea? It's a good question, Perry. Good question.
I can speak a little bit to the first part. I need to think on the second part.
Yeah, I can
say one idea that came through recently, and we were like, oh, that is perfect for us, was something that had to do with biometrics, because it's a theme that is sort of threaded all throughout our health and wellness department. And so we saw that, and we saw how it already layered onto products that we were building, and it just seemed like the perfect fit. So there's some things that, like I said, we're equal opportunity innovators, but there are some things that we gravitate toward a little bit more. One of those things are, at present, we gravitate toward more, one of those being health and wellness. So that's an example of something that like came through, and it was just perfect for us. And as for problems that need to be solved in the world, I don't think there's any shortage of them.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's partly why we have the front end newspaper exercise to say, tell us about what, every day you see that thing and you think, oh my God, someone surely has solved this, and you find no one has. And to, talk about that problem statement and then say, actually, there's this thing we can actually do to make the world a better place. And, as we're getting more and more ideas through the lab, we're like, okay, that's like 10 people that have said that to us right now. And then we start to sort of delve in, hence why we have the processes around, okay, now, let's explore this in a little bit more detail. Let's find out, what our friends and family think about that idea. And then they kind of self-select themselves. And, from some of the ideas we've been looking at this week, Chiara, straight away you see it and you're like, that's genius. And it's when you kind of have that moment to say, yes, let's look at this and see like what we can do. So I don't think there's a specific thing where we've both written down on a piece of paper to say, right, if we get one of these, that'd be great. I think it just, when it hits you, you're just like, yeah, this is
it when you see it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have another, oh, look at this. The questions are flying through now. Is there a web page that gives you guidelines for submitting ideas, how far along they need to be, etc., etc.? Wow, you've read our mind, Karen. You've read our mind.
Yeah, there will be soon. Working on it. That should be up. That should be up within the next couple of weeks, most likely. So yeah, keep an eye out for that on the Nobody Studios website.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Karen, happy to get on a call and tell you about our thinking. And again, you can help us out and say, okay, but remember this, Min, and we'll remember that as well. So that's great. Okay, so that's our 20 minutes done. Didn't that fly by?
That's it.
That is. So thank you once again, everyone, for joining me and Chiara today. Hope that was helpful, and really look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday for another IdeaLab. Cheers, guys.
Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Bye.